Connor Munson. I'm the manager of the Champaign County History Museum. This is the historic cattle bank we're speaking in. It's from 1858. It's the oldest commercial building in Champaign-Urbana. You'll see on the wall next to me a collection of the largest historical events in the county, the most important. So we have a panel on Lincoln's final speech in Champaign County. We have a panel on Dottie Schroeder, Farm Aid, Mosaic, which was the first web browser. So we want to give people a sense of the historical events that have happened within the county. Over here, we have an exhibit on Farm Aid. So this exhibit here was designed by students. We tend to have graduate students produce these. We also just recently had History Harvest, which is a collaboration with the University of Illinois that was community focused. People would bring in their artifacts, and that's how we got Willie Nelson's hat. We also got some tickets and a program. So a lot of really interesting material comes in at any given point in the year from the community, and we really never know what we're going to get. Now, to talk a little about the cattle bank, this panel over here is about the history of it. This building was originally designed as a bank in a time frame when Champaign had not been thoroughly drained. It was mostly swamp or wetland. And what that meant in practical terms was it was actually very hard to grow anything in the early decades of the county. Now, farmers couldn't really do very much with the land at that point. It would take decades to install drainage tiles that would make it the farmland that it is now. But you could have cattle. You could raise cattle on the land because there was a lot of grass. Welcome back. We're in the Snapshots exhibit. This is an exhibit on early county photography. Champaign County History Museum is very proud of its photography collection. I think it's one of the highlights of our collection overall. In this display, we talk about the evolution of photography within the county. And because of the time frame we're speaking of, which is, the county's founded in 1833, photography is developed only a few years later. And then going into the early 20th century, you have a period of really rapid evolution of photographic technology. So in this display here, we have a number of different types of photographs, starting with daguerreotypes, ambrotypes, card-mounted prints, tintypes. And so you can see kind of the changes in how photographs were developed. It was not actually a very easy process early on to develop photographs, and it took a certain amount of skill to do. As the process evolved, it became easier to become a hobbyist. But in these early days, a lot of these people were professionals. Now, in here, we have a picture of Abraham Lincoln. You probably can't see it on this video tour, but I'll just tell the story briefly. Abraham Lincoln actually had his photograph taken in Urbana at the studio of a man named Altschuler, Samuel Altschuler. And when he was having his photograph taken, there were circumstances that kind of conspired to make it so Lincoln could not actually wear the jacket he had brought with him. And so what that meant was he needed to borrow a jacket for the photograph. But Altschuler was much smaller than Lincoln in terms of his frame, and Lincoln had kind of an unusual build. He was very tall and lanky. And what that meant was when he borrowed one of Altschuler's jackets, the fit was completely wrong on him. The jacket was much too small. And so, according to J.O. Cunningham, who was a friend of Lincoln, and actually in the studio at the time, Lincoln was laughing, what he said, immodestly at the situation just because of the absurdity of how Lincoln looked in this jacket. So if you actually look at the photograph, you can kind of tell he's gritting his teeth a little bit to seem serious in the picture. So over here we have Everett Block's contact printer. So what's interesting about this device, and we actually allow members of the public to touch it, is it was a device designed to help dry photographs as they were being developed. And it was filled with light bulbs. Basically what the process was back in the day, they used incandescent bulbs. Incandescent bulbs threw off a lot of heat. So if you wanted photographs to develop a little bit quicker, you could use a contact printer to speed up the process. So flipping these switches, depending on where you wanted the photograph to dry, or the separate photographs to dry, you could actually make it very specific which areas were going to be developed faster. So it's a very useful device. It's also very sturdy. This thing is well built. Hello. So this room here is a temporary exhibit that we have been putting on for the last 4 months. It's called Art in the Museum, and it was designed by Ian Wang, who's one of our board members. The goal of this room was to highlight local artists who are part of Champaign, in many cases historical figures in their own right, or just people who want to highlight parts of their county and local culture. Now, we have been taking the time to set up a new temp gallery every single month, starting in December, and now it's April, so we've done several of these already, but it's been a very popular series for us. On the wall here, we have several paintings from Jenny Garrett, who passed away a couple of years ago. Her husband is Professor Garrett of the University of Illinois. And we really want to highlight these personal stories of the artists through their work. Many of these paintings were actually done of areas within the county. Now, 2 of these are not. That one is from Galway. That one is of Eastern Europe. But for the most part, it's of Central Illinois. And there's the sense that a history museum has to only do history, and that's not really true. You can actually tell all sorts of different stories within our space. And so we actually hope to do this again at some point. It's going to end in June, but watch this space. We're probably going to do this again before too long.